What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we have a new episode of Fan-Made Exotics, the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon, armor, ghost shell, or heck, any Destiny exotic idea and have a chance for a realistic concept art to be made for it. Now that's because I've partnered with the artist Benjamin Radiman, who makes these amazingly realistic exotic concepts. His DeviantArt will be linked in the description down below. Now last episode we did introduce the artist Michael aka Rageblade, who also does some fantastic work. Unfortunately for the last 2 weeks he's been really busy with university exams, so he wasn't able to contribute to this episode, but he will be back in full force next episode. Now guys, the layout for today's video, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to showcase 5 featured exotics that all came from the comment section of last week's video. There's some fantastic ideas, really cool ideas we're going to see today, and also a great idea to watch those featured exotics if you're planning to submit an idea, just so you kind of know what kind of ideas get accepted. Now speaking of submitting your idea, what should you do if you want to submit an exotic idea? All you need to do is make your own individual comment in the comment section of this video. Just make a comment saying anything important to the artist, like what your concept would look like, any design features and so on, and also include its stats and other perks, and most importantly include its exotic perks. And that's really all there is to it. Now let's move on to the 5 featured comments, but just before we do, 2 very important things. Firstly, if you enjoy this series and want to see more, please remember to support this video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. It's a very simple thing, but it really helps me and the artists out. Further than that, if you are planning to make a submission, make sure you're doing it on the newest video in this series. If there is a newer video than this one, an annotation will appear right now, leading you to that newest video. Alright guys, let's get started today with the 5 featured concepts. Firstly, with something that is a little unlike anything you're seeing in the game right now. It is the 6 Advances exotic auto rifle concept by Aiden Streaks 333. This weapon was made by the Tex Mechanica Foundry, the same foundry that made the Chaperone and the Last Word exotic weapons. So that's why you're seeing kind of a Western ornamental style with this weapon. I think it works perfectly. If I was to see a Tex Mechanica auto rifle, I would think it would look something like this. Of course, it's a little bit more than your normal auto rifle because this is a chain gun with rotating barrels, and that means it's going to have a huge rate of fire and lesser impact. Now the exotic perks for this weapon are, firstly, the intrinsic perk Focused Bull. While firing this weapon, you gain more aim assist as the magazine gets lower. That makes sense, decently useful, so as you're shooting this gun engaging multiple targets, the weapon is going to gain more and more aim assist. Further than that, the exotic perk is 6 barrels. The longer the trigger is held, the closer you get to 0, the higher the chance rounds return back into the magazine. Rounds that hit your target also have a chance to return. So basically we've got a chain gun in Destiny, huge rate of fire, again not so great impact, and a couple of things to help that. It's got a pretty decent magazine size at 150 with extended mags, which it does have, and lets you return rounds into the magazine with the 6 barrels exotic perk to let you just keep shooting, keep shooting, keep shooting. And actually that seems pretty fun. It probably is going to be more effective in PvE than PvP. In PvP you definitely just want your first few shots to be very accurate, very high damaging. That's what you want to take the enemy down with. You don't really care about after the 100th round keeping going with your magazine, because you'd rather have already killed the enemy at that point. This may be good for double and even triple or heck even quad kills in PvP because it has such a big magazine and returning rounds and so on. But again, in PvE, the chance to just engage a boss, engage just a ton of thralls or acolytes or any number of situations where a bunch of enemies are being thrown at you at once and just keep shooting, keep your damage up is very, very useful. Now moving on, we have a really interesting concept. It is the Shattered Exotic Sniper Rifle concept by Bantosaurus 101. Now this weapon is literally torn between dimensions. That's why it looks the way it does. If you're using it in game, it would like glitch out every once in a while. You know, it go forth in between a couple of different dimensions, and therefore it has some pretty unique abilities. Firstly, it has the intrinsic perk, the Shattered. Upon impact with a surface or enemy, a fired round will break into fragments which spread and deal small amounts of damage to enemies. So if you hit an enemy character, or if you just hit the ground or hit a wall, the bullet will essentially explode. But unlike a normal explosion like in explosive rounds, or like in the Firefly perk where it's just a round explosion that damages all enemies within it, it's going to shoot out fragments. It's going to shoot out actual projectiles, and if those projectiles hit another enemy, they are going to do damage. Now on top of that, we have the exotic perk, the Vengeful. Fragments have the ability to over-penetrate enemies and ricochet on hard surfaces multiple times before dispersing. Now this is the kind of exotic that if Bungie was going to introduce it, it would have to be for just the PS4 and the Xbox One. The last gen consoles could in no way handle the stuff that's going on with this exotic, but it is such a cool idea. So if you shoot an enemy, you're going to introduce that explosion of fragments, and those fragments are going to bounce around and have the chance to hit that same enemy again. Heck, you could have certain scenarios in PvP maps or in PvE environments where you just shoot this sniper rifle at the ground or in a room just to get those fragments bouncing around in that room and kill everyone inside. Like, that would be so fun to use. That would be a blast to use in PvP and PvE. Just shoot it where all the thralls are spawning, get all the fragments bouncing around and just kill all the thralls. That would be so much fun, and it's such a unique idea. Also, one more thing with this weapon, how sweet would it be to shoot the Nexus or the Undying Mind with this weapon and get the fragments bouncing around inside the shields just to do massive damage to those bosses? That would be so cool. Alright guys, moving on, the next exotic concept we're going over is the 7 of 9 exotic scout rifle concept by Dusty P9. Now this is, firstly, a Hawka scout rifle. Currently not in the game, but I really wish Bungie would add them. Anyways, this weapon has two unique perks. The first one is a passive perk, Bring Them Back. Precision hits return 1 round to the magazine from the reserves, and precision kills refund 2 rounds. This is accompanied by the exotic perk, Designation 7 of 9. When your super is charged, kills with this weapon charge your allies' grenades and melee abilities. Whilst under this effect, grenade and melee abilities have a chance to produce an orb of light upon getting a kill. So let's talk about the first perk, Bring Them Back. Getting an extra round into your magazine from every precision hit, even if it's from your reserves, that's a pretty damn powerful ability. That's going to make this gun so good in PvE. Heck, just look at the Raid Scout Rifle. That thing, the Chaos Dogma, it just got the triple double perk. Not even close to as good as this perk, and it's already a very, very powerful PvE weapon. So I think this perk may need to be scaled down just a little bit. Having an automatic passive perk with triple tap may be good enough, and then the precision kills refunding 2 rounds, that is a pretty neat ability as well. But the exotic perk is really interesting. Sacrificing your super or just not using it, which happens all the time. Like, you have a charged super, that doesn't mean you're going to use it immediately no matter what activity you're doing. You're likely going to save it for the opportune moment. And then when you're saving your super to utilize, every single time you get kills, you're going to charge your allies' grenades and melees. Now, it's unfortunate that you don't charge your own grenades and melees, but still pretty interesting team-focused ability, and definitely useful. Like, you're going to be so happy if you're playing a strike and someone else has this weapon. Like, you'd be thrilled to be able to have your grenades and melees charging more often, more frequently when that's happening, and not only that, producing orbs if your super is full as well. Very interesting and unique idea. I'm always open to hearing these team-focused abilities that don't affect you but affect your teammates, because I mean, Destiny is such a team-focused game. Even if you're just playing solo, there's so many activities that matchmake you with a team. Now moving on, we have the Sagittarian's Bow, exotic sniper rifle concept by Lucas Herman. This weapon has the exotic perk Optimist's Dream. Every time an enemy is shot, the bullet comes back like a boomerang. This boomerang round does double damage, and if you get a kill with it, the round is refunded. Now, of course, the main problem with this, and something that I think was maybe overlooked, is that sniper rifles in Destiny don't have projectiles, they're hit scans, so they go instantly to where you shoot when you shoot it. Now, the solution for that is that you would just make this weapon have a projectile instead of a hit scan. A projectile is something that actually has a travel time. It takes a little bit of time for the bullet to get to the enemy. It's not instantaneous. There's already a sniper rifle that utilizes projectiles in Destiny with the Queenbreaker's Bow. The bullet does have a little bit of travel time to get to the enemy. So if this weapon had the travel time, you would have the option for it to get to the enemy, hit that enemy, and then go back and hit any other enemies that maybe walk along that path. In fact, the slower the bullet travels back to you with the boomerang effect, almost the better. You wouldn't want it to be like super slow, but if it was too fast, you would never get a kill with it. Unless an enemy like dove across your line of sight, you would never get that kill. So having this weapon just shoot the enemy and then having a slower, maybe half speed bullet come back, and then any other enemies that like cross that line will get hit by the double damage dealing shot. That's actually a really cool idea. Like, once you make those changes, this becomes pretty damn effective and would be a very fun gun to potentially utilize. You would have a lot of scenarios where you shoot one enemy, the other enemy is nearby, you can't get the collateral, but if you hit that one enemy and the other one moves over, you can get that double kill where otherwise you wouldn't. And it would be pretty effective in PvE scenarios as well. Shooting one enemy and then, crushing all of the enemies with the round coming back would be a pretty decent idea, especially if you could shoot an enemy that was behind the ranks of most enemies on purpose and get that round coming back to just rip through all of the thralls and acolytes or whatever in front. Alright, now moving on, our last exotic concept featured today, continuing with the trend of sniper rifles and scout rifles, we have the Harvester, exotic scout rifle concept by Orion Hernandez. This weapon has 2 unique perks, the first one being an intrinsic perk called Your Loss. Increased hipfire accuracy at the cost of your range while hipfiring. So as long as you're firing this weapon from the hip, as long as you're not aiming down sights, you're going to get a decent hipfire bonus. But at the cost of range, so you're not going to be able to, snipe someone with your hipfire. But as long as you aim back down sights, you're going to regain that range. So this perk is not going to reduce your range all the time, only when you're hipfiring. That's a pretty cool idea, and it's an interesting way to make the hipfire perk already in Destiny a little bit better. Introduce this new perk that would reduce your range additionally while you're hipfiring, but then when you aim down sights, it's restored. Pretty interesting perk there. We also have the exotic perk Becomes My Gain. Precision kills with this weapon. This is a really cool perk. will cause the target to explode, so just like Firefly. However, enemies killed by that explosion will also explode, and so on. Double kills recharge grenade energy and return ammo to the magazine. So that is just such a fun weapon to use in PvE. Bungie, please put that perk into the game. That would be so much fun. We've all gotten double kills with explosions caused by Firefly. Now imagine if that enemy you killed also exploded with another Firefly, and then any other enemies also exploded. Like, you could absolutely wipe out groups of enemies, like smaller tier groups of enemies, like 10 thralls with a single shot with this exotic perk. It would be so fun to use because once you get that initial explosion, that's gonna harm all enemies nearby. And then if you also get a kill with that explosion on, let's say, a wounded enemy, that enemy is also gonna explode and harm any more enemies nearby. So you're gonna have enemies that are now hit by 2 explosions, and then maybe they're gonna die and they're gonna explode, and it's just gonna chain so fast, so furiously. We're gonna have Vin Diesel popping out of nowhere. That's how Fast and Furious is gonna be. But seriously, this would be a blast to use. I really hope something like this is introduced into Destiny. Maybe also this could result in some definitely top 5 plays of the week for Destiny in PvP as well, if you get some lucky snipes with it too. And so guys, that's gonna be it for the 5 featured exotics in this episode. Now let's talk about some tips for getting selected. Firstly, try to self-regulate your idea. Make sure that your idea isn't overpowered. Getting a kill and instantly getting an overshield is likely going to be too much for PvP. Secondly, ensure that your idea is realistic for Destiny. Getting a kill and turning into a bear is cool, but it's never gonna be introduced into the game. Aside from that, make sure that your idea isn't overly complicated. If you're writing paragraphs and paragraphs trying to explain your 7 different exotic perks, and it would take me 10 minutes to explain what your weapon does, it probably won't get selected. But in addition to that, don't be afraid to break the traditional norms of the Destiny gun system. Don't be afraid to make SMGs, laser rifles, heavy scout rifles, heavy sniper rifles. Any of that stuff is totally okay. And then guys, the last thing we're going to talk about today is that we're going to shout out all of the different concepts that were made since last episode. Firstly, we have the Blacksmith, Exotic Titan Gauntlets concept by Fuzzalicious Orangey. Moving on from there, we have the Menacious Chain, Exotic Arc Pulse Rifle concept by Bantosaurus 101. After that, we have the Addendum, Exotic Sidearm concept by Spectre RMMC. Next up, we have the Spirit of War, Exotic Sniper Rifle concept by RXB MXSXN. Next, we have the Eicheval SA2, Exotic Sidearm concept by Chip Mercury. Moving on from there, we have the Stargazer's Scope, Exotic Warlock Helmet concept by Rohit. And lastly, we have the Pea Shooter, Exotic Auto Rifle concept by Bandit Nation. And guys, that's it for this episode of Fan-Made Exotics. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, again, please remember to help support this series by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. Now, if you guys want to see more Destiny content similar to this and don't want to miss out on the next episode of Fan-Made Exotics, be sure to slap that subscribe button. But if you actually want to be notified of new uploads, you're going to have to press the bell beside subscribe. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.